In this video, we configure a Netgate SG-1100 as a client on a site-to-site OpenVPN configuration. The use case for this is we have a client who has 15 remote workers working around the country, and they need to log in to the main office and access files securely. Even if they're behind a modem or a modem router double NATed, the tunnel will get created and they plug their computer into the LAN port and away they go. They're connected to the internet and to the assets back at the main building. Let's jump into the configuration. We're going to start with a factory defaulted unit right from the beginning, and here we have ours. Username is password and pfsense for default. And we'll walk through the wizard to get a base configuration. We don't need to change the host name or domain name, and then for DNS we'll just put in a couple usual suspects in there, hit next. That's fine for the time zone. If you really want to, you can change your time zone. This is just an example, so I'm not too concerned about it. The WAN interface, there's no changes that we need to make here. The LAN interface. So by default, pfsense wants to create a 192.168.1.network. That's a very common private network, seen in a lot of home routers, cable modems, and that kind of cable modem routers. And we want to make sure that there's not going to be a conflict, that there's not going to be the same IP scheme on the LAN side as there is on the WAN side. So we want to choose an IP scheme that would not be duplicated by the typical cable modem router or big box store router that we might be installed behind. So for our example, we're going to use a 172 network. Click next, and admin password. This should be a difficult and secure password. For our example, we're going to use password, but don't do that at home. Click next, and reload. All right, we're going to click finish, and we'll lose the router because now the LAN scheme has changed. Oh, that came right back up. We'll probably have to release and renew our configuration. We'll try and reload that page. And there we go. So again, it's admin and the very secure password you've created, not the one that I'm using. Make a change to this dashboard. I don't see the need to have the Netgate service and support box up there. What will be helpful to us later is to add the gateway. And after that, services. So the steps that we're going to take today. First, we're going to create an OpenVPN connection and then establish traffic to travel through it from the LAN. The next thing that we'll do is we'll create a WAN failover. If the OpenVPN tunnel goes down, you want to be able to continue to route traffic through the WAN. We'll do that second. And then the last thing that we'll do is we'll show a slight modification to that, and that will route all web traffic, port 80 and 443, through the WAN port all the time. And that just puts less of a load on the ISP back at the main building. Instead of having all the 15 employees traffic come through the OpenVPN tunnel, just the necessary information for retrieving files from the file server will, but all the regular YouTubing or playing games on the internet, that'll go through their WAN modem. All right, so we're at the dashboard and we're going to start configuring the system. The first thing that we do is we go into System and Certificate Manager, and we need to add a CA. So we click Add and give it a name like OpenVPN VPN cert, and we're not going to create one, but we are going to import one. This was created by the pfsense OpenVPN server, and it created a file for you. You'll take that file and just copy the CA out of that file and paste that here. Nothing else that's needed on this page. We hit save, and we're good. We need to come over to VPN and OpenVPN and create our OpenVPN client. So the Clients tab, and then Add. And we'll go through all the sections here. There's a lot of sections. This is the biggest changes that we'll be making, the biggest number of changes that we'll be making, and we'll go through all the different ones that you need. So we're going to start with its peer-to-peer, it's UDP, it's a tunnel, and it's on the WAN. So the server host or address is the FQDN of the server that you're trying to reach out to. Mine is at a friend's business, so we'll put in his FQDN. Yours will be different. You want to make sure that you're using the right address, or you won't be able to establish a connection. The server port, for default, OpenVPN uses 1194. We're going to use 1199, and that's just because my friend already has an OpenVPN server running on 1194. So for this instance, it's 1199. Again, it's important that you put the correct port in that your server will be using or listening on. And a description. Just let's name it. VPN to Pat. That's a good name because my buddy's name is Pat. Hey, Pat. All right, we're going to use username and password authentication for this. And the reason for that is we have 15 different SG-1100s that will be logging in. And from a quick look at a dashboard on the server, we'll be able to see which ones are logged in, which ones are not logged in. And it's a quick troubleshooting help to kind of establish who's working and who's not. So type in the password for my test and move along. We will be using a TLS key, but we will not be automatically generating one. Again, this was created by the server. It's in that document, the server output, and you just want to go over there and select your TLS key and paste that in here. All right, your peer certificate authority is OpenVPN Cert. That was the name that we created when we created our CA, and it's auto-filled here. So it's, by default, it's done for us. But if you have multiple CAs on your system, you're going to want to make sure that you select the correct one from this list. Our encryption, we're using 256 CBC. Select that from the list. Again, that's important that you select the encryption that your server is using, or you will not get established a connection. All right, tunnel settings. The IPv4 tunnel network. This is the IP address that will be used in the tunnel. And for ours, we've established 192.168.110.0. Yours will probably be different. And the remote network. This is the network where the assets are sitting, or the file server for our client is sitting. Again, this is a test example back to my friend's router, and we've established 192.168.111.0. The important thing to remember here is that this is the address that you're trying to reach ultimately for your asset file server or whatever you have. Compression. Our setup is using the omit preference. It's important again that you select the correct compression for your server or you will not get established. And then custom options. There's some custom options that will be in that file generated by the server. You just want to copy those and paste them in here. Important thing, gateway creation, IPv4 only. By default, it's both, but our server was set up to be IPv4 only, so it's important that we select IPv4 only in our client. With all that, we're going to hit save. I've got a long list here. I just want to make sure that we did all of the things that we need to do. Looks like we got them all. We'll hit save. And that's about it. At that point, if your server is up and running and listening for your client, we should see that we're already established. To check that, we go to Status and OpenVPN. You can also get to it by this icon on the dashboard. And we'll see that we are up. Hey, our tunnel is established. We can go over to What's My IP and check to see our IP address. We're getting a 67 address. That is Comcast cable modem in Milford, where my office is. We are not actually getting any traffic through the tunnel. The tunnel's been established, the connection has been made, but we haven't yet set up rules to allow the LAN traffic to route through that tunnel. We'll do that now. So back over to our SG-1100, and we're going to start with interfaces. our interface assignment. And right here on the OPT interface, we want to select the OpenVPN. Hit save. And after that, an important thing is to click on OPT to go into that interface and enable it. It's not enabled by default. It's not enabled when you connected it to OpenVPN. You have to come here and do that. And at this point, we can give it a good descriptive name. OpenVPN. That's excellent. That's all that you need to do in this section. Save that. Apply those changes. And we'll be off to the firewall once this reloads. Okay, firewall and NAT. We need to make changes to the outbound NAT. It is going to be manual. You need to hit save there. And then this rule right here, WAN to 172, we want to duplicate. This rule states that the 172 network can route traffic through the WAN. We want to say that the 172 network can also route traffic through OpenVPN. So the interface is what you want to change. You'll see that there's two very similar interfaces here, and you want to select, in my case, the lowercase one, OpenVPN, because that is the name of the interface that we want to route. Just about everything else can be the same. Where's the description? Because it's always good to have a good description. Oh, there it is. So we'll say LAN to OpenVPN. And save. You need to apply those changes. After that is done, it's back to firewall and rules on the LAN side. And it's this rule right here. This rule says that any traffic, IPv4 traffic on the LAN will get routed through the default gateway. Well, we don't want to use the default gateway. We want to use the OpenVPN gateway. So we're not going to duplicate it. We're just going to edit this rule. I'm going to come in here and right down to Advanced and select Gateway and choose the OpenVPN from the selection. Save that and apply those changes. And now we should be good. We can go back to what's my IP and reload. Oh, I know what I forgot to do. Back when we set up our dashboard to have our services, it's an easy way to restart the OpenVPN. And we just want to click here and do reload. And since we have our gateways displayed on that dashboard, we can see after a second that the OpenVPN gateway will establish, become online. There it is online, and we know that we're good to go. Let's go back to what's my IP and reload that. And there you go. 96 address is not the WAN of my router or modem, but the IP address, the WAN IP address of my friend Pat. So there you go. We've established the OpenVPN site-to-site connection, and we are now routing LAN traffic through that connection. Actually, you know what we can do? We go over here and go to fast and do a speed test just to see. We should not be getting the 200 or so megabits per second that my ISP offers. It's going to be limited coming through the SG-1100 in the site-to-site. And we'll see that in a second. Certainly limited. There you go. And that's all that you need to do to create a site-to-site OpenVPN tunnel between an SG-1100 and the pfSense router at the server side. But the next thing that we wanted to do was create a gateway group. The gateway group creates a failover. So if the OpenVPN server was to fail, the employee using his computer would think that the internet was out and they wouldn't be able to get anywhere. And so we can create a failover where when the OpenVPN tunnel is down, the WAN port will be used to route right through their modem. We can do that by going to System and then Routing. and gateway group. And we're going to add a new gateway group. Give it a good description. WAN and OpenVPN. And we want to set this to tier 2 and OpenVPN to tier 1. By doing that, it's going to by default use OpenVPN, and if the OpenVPN tunnel is not there, it's going to fail over to the WAN gateway. We can give it a good description. WAN and OpenVPN. All right, we'll need to apply those changes. And then we can make a quick change to our firewall rule. On the LAN side, that same rule, we're going to go back into it, where it says all LAN traffic should be routed through the OpenVPN. We want to go back down to that gateway, and we want to select the WAN and OpenVPN. Hit save, and apply changes. And now IPv4 traffic on the LAN will be using that gateway group. We can come back to what's my IP and see that we're still connected through the OpenVPN tunnel to Pat's site, and try fast again to see how our data speeds are. And certainly we're still using the OpenVPN tunnel. A little bit faster that time. So I'll make a quick call to Pat. I'll have him kick us off the OpenVPN server, and we should see that we can continue to route traffic using the WAN, and we'll experience actually a faster download. All right, be right back. All right, so Pat's kicked us off the server, and actually back at our dashboard, we can see that the OpenVPN is offline. WAN is still online. So we can go right here and quickly check what's my IP. It's back at 6.7, the Milford Comcast WAN address of my office, and give fast a try. Oh, wrong button. There you go. So we're it'll settle in. Oh, we're down to 93. Good old Comcast, giving us those awesome speeds. All right, so the last thing that we want to do is that we want to break out web traffic port 80 and 443 to not use the OpenVPN tunnel. The reason for that is if we had all the traffic pass through the tunnel and you have 15 employees, you're going to put a large load on the ISP back at the main building. There's no reason for that. Web traffic such as YouTube videos or just general searches can be routed through the WAN interface of each employee's own home router. We can do that by just having to make a couple of firewall rules on the LAN side. So we want to create a new rule just above our LAN rule. And the destination, port 80, and advanced, we want to select our gateway as the WAN. Oh, you know what? We should give it a good descriptive name. Port 80 via WAN. And hit save. And add one more. And our destination will be port 443. A good description, port 443 via WAN. And our gateway is the WAN gateway. Apply changes. All right, once that's reloaded, let's go back to the dashboard. I think Pat by now has put us back on the server. And there you go, the OpenVPN is online. The WAN is online. And we can try a speed test. Whoa, I shouldn't have knocked Comcast there at the end. It dropped down to 93, but it ended when we left at 530. I don't pay for 530 megabits per second. I don't know. Hey, I'll take it. All right, so we're seeing 220 megabits per second right now in that test. And if we came back to the SG-1100 and went to our firewall rules on the LAN side, we'll see that all of that traffic right there, 230 megabits, traveled through the rule that routes 443 traffic through the WAN and not through the OpenVPN. All right, so that's everything that we need to do to set up the SG-1100 as a site-to-site client in an OpenVPN configuration. I hope you found this video interesting, and if you did, please consider giving us a thumbs up or subscribing. And if you'd like to contact us to help you with your network, you can reach us at our contact information below. Thank you.